the Hull Canal, the sometimes narrow passageway between the long Magdalena Island and the Baja mainland. The weather is calm and sunny, enabling us to view with awe the green mangrove trees which provide the backdrop for an occasional whale sighting, and then the Sahara-like sand dunes which form the major part of this deserted desert island separating us from the ocean. Again we are uplifted by the magnificent sight of frigate birds floating against the sky. When we reach the north end of Magdalena Island, at the mouth of one of the entrances from the ocean to the bay, our ship drops anchor for the night. Here the sun sets behind the island's wind-carved dunes at what is called Boca de Soledad. The morning of day 6 is shrouded in mist, but that does not prevent us from going ashore in the Humbers to explore the tantalizing sand dunes, on which we cannot help but leave footprints anywhere we wander. There is not much vegetation on this elongated mass of sandy hills, surrounded on all sides by the blue of the sea. It presents an unusual vista, far removed from the accustomed urban habitats of civilization. It is fun to try to climb barefoot up the shifting slopes and to look down at our boat anchored on the sheltered side. On the ocean side, we can hear the breakers roar. We can understand why the whales, at the end of their long journey, welcome wending their way through this surf-filled entrance mouth into the calmer waters of the lagoon beyond. And it is in this peaceful lagoon on the eastern side of the island that we once again venture out close to the surface in our rubber Humbers, watching for the whales. See how many tails you can count during this afternoon's encounters, as they arch their backs and dive down beneath the surface. It is frequently possible to distinguish individual whales by the markings and colorization on the undersides of their tails. This is often how we recognize seeing the same whale more than once. After a couple of hours of renewed small boat excursions, we are summoned back to the mothership for a return cruise back down through the Hull Canal. Here we can look down from the deck as we pass by mothers and calves, some of them so newly born that they are just learning how to surface and to breathe and to dive. Sometimes the calf surfaces first, sometimes the mother, but they are almost constantly touching each other. The California gray whale holds the record for the longest annual migration of any mammal in the world. They spend the summer months feeding in the cool, nutrient-rich waters of the Arctic and the Bering Sea off Alaska. Then in the fall, they begin the long 6,000-mile swim down along the entire western coast of the North American continent to Baja California. The great parade reaches these lagoons in December and January, and here the females give birth to the calves conceived a year earlier. This very young calf appears to be experiencing some difficulty in coordinating its movements and learning how to breathe and dive properly. Its mother is close by, but it spends an unusual amount of time thrashing around on the surface by itself. We trust that with its mother's patient help, it will soon become properly oriented to being an air-breathing mammal living in the sea. I talked with our leader, Peter Butz, about what we have been seeing here.
This is my first time in these lagoons here, but you've been here before. How would you compare what we've seen the last 2 days with what you've seen in previous times?
Well, we've been coming in here for 6 years now, and we've been down in these lagoons earlier than this. We've been down here as early as December, and on none of the trips have we seen so many very young calves as we've seen on this trip. Obviously very newborn. Other years we've seemed to have seen more that have been several weeks old, but never so many that were so small as what we've seen these last couple of days.
Those little small heads alongside the great big bodies. Good, thank you.
You bet.
At the close of this day, we head out from Magdalena Bay and resume our journey southward toward the tip of the Baja Peninsula. The boat moves steadily on throughout the night. We are now on the last leg of the long ocean cruise down the west coast, and by nightfall we hope to reach and round the rocky land's end known as Cabo San Lucas. This will be the southernmost point in our circumnavigation of the great Baja Peninsula. To help keep track of the time frame for our varied adventures and to maintain a cinematic log of our voyage, every morning before breakfast I go out on the bow and temporarily mount a date sign to be filmed for the movie record. We are now starting our 7th day, and as we proceed down toward the Cape, we have a dramatic encounter with a group of different whales. We observe at least 3 of these giant leviathans surfacing on the deep blue of the ocean. Approaching them more closely, it is apparent that they are not gray whales. From their spouts, their backs, and especially their tails, we can tell that these are Pacific humpback whales. They appear to be slightly larger than their North Atlantic cousins, the acrobatic humpbacks, which are the favorites of New England summer whale watchers. But these Pacific humpbacks don't seem to raise their tails out of the water as frequently when they hump their backs to dive. The humpbacks in the North Pacific are known to travel in an ocean triangle, moving between Alaska, Mexico, and Hawaii at different times of the year. We stay with this group for nearly an hour, waiting to get photos of the undersides of their tails, each with a distinctive pattern of white and black markings by which individuals can be identified. There's a good tail shot at last. By taking and comparing whale tail photos from different locations, naturalists are able to document the travel routes of specific whales. Some humpbacks seen off Baja California have also been photographed in Alaska and Hawaii. Now they are heading toward us. Humpback whales, like the grays, were nearly exterminated by modern whalers during the first half of the 20th century. International protection for the last 50 years has allowed gray whales to recover, and they have now been removed from the endangered species list. Humpback whales, however, remain endangered. While we are still observing these 3, we are joined by some dolphins again. As always, it is fascinating and fun to watch them riding our boat's bow waves and swimming so gracefully and effortlessly along parallel to the ship's course, exhibiting a seemingly irrepressible joie de vivre. It's also a thrill to see these dolphins playing in among and around their giant cousins, the humpbacks. They have been known to ride whales' bow waves, too. In contrast to the gray whales, whose recovered population now numbers well over 20,000, it is estimated that there are still less than 1,000 humpback whales in the North Pacific. We are sad to finally have to take our leave of these treasured preservers of the species, but we are nearing our land's end destination. A long strip of sandy ocean beach leads up to the stunning outcroppings of rock at the tip of the peninsula. As we approach the Cape, we have one more whale encounter with two large gray whales who have strayed beyond the crowds at the lagoons. They give us an exceptional view of their overall bodies, splotched with the white spots which give this species its distinctive color. The closer we come to this magnificent landmark, Cabo San Lucas, the Cape of St. Luke, the more awestruck we are at the dramatic beauty of these protruding pinnacles of rock which stand guard over the end of the Baja Peninsula. These awesome rock formations, projecting at different points from out of the sea, are among the most photographed pieces of land and seascape any place in the world. As we will observe later, these giant rocks also provide a much-used nighttime resting place for multitudes of foraging seabirds. Favorite photo spots among the rocks are an inland cave and this beautiful natural arch with blue-green water flowing through it. This area is also a favored fishing spot, whether for pelicans or for small boat enthusiasts. On the east side of the peninsula's end is the surprisingly busy commercial and tourist port and harbor of Cabo San Lucas. There are many small boats and yachts in the harbor, and both sport fishing and food fishing are major enterprises. Once again, our landing at a Spanish-speaking port of entry is accompanied by greetings from a large Chamber of Commerce delegation of pelicans. The town itself is a mixture of Americanos and Mexicanos, and we enjoy sampling its various wares while our ship waits anchored in the bay. There is a large luxury hotel up on the ridge overlooking both the harbor on the east and the ocean on the west. It is exhilarating to stop for a drink at the spectacular Whale Watchers Bar on a stone veranda facing the Pacific. This has to be one of the most dramatic and exotic bar locations in the world, where you can spot spouts as you sip. There are some interesting old buildings down below on the expansive beach, which has gained some fame as a setting for swimsuit photography. Among the towering rocks near the tip, we find one pass-through beach connected to the water on both sides. In the early evening, our boat takes us out again to see the birds flocking in incredible numbers around the sky-reaching rocks of Cabo San Lucas. These are frigate birds, literally hundreds and hundreds of them filling the sky. Unable to land on water, they must return at day's end to find a safe, dry spot on the ledges of this giant rock where they can roost for the night. Our night aboard the ship begins with another glorious ocean sunset and a natural setting which could scarcely be more magnificent. The next morning, with our odyssey now half completed, we wake with the boat tossing and pitching in a heavy sea. Surprisingly, as we head up into the Sea of Cortez, also called the Gulf of California, we find the water much rougher and the waves higher than any we had encountered on the ocean side of the peninsula. The spray from the bow plowing through the large waves splashes the dining room windows and keeps most of the passengers inside for the morning. But this is the kind of outdoor exposure which I, for one, greatly enjoy. You can see the horizon rising and falling as the boat pitches and tosses. For me, it's a fun challenge and a thrill ride to try to keep standing up and not lose my balance out there on the foredeck as the prow plunges up and down in the giant swells. Shortly after lunch, the boat moves into the lee of a large desert island, Isla Partida, with a tranquil bay of contrastingly calm blue-green water, which makes us feel as if we have discovered paradise. Everybody goes ashore in the Humbers, landing like time travelers on a beautiful, smooth, sandy beach, and then setting out to spend the afternoon exploring the cactus-covered hills and gullies of this deserted desert place.